Welcome to Brawl, the podcast where art and MMA go hand in hand.
Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Brawl podcast. I am Dave Fowler, here with the magisterial Ben Morris, and we got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. We got a couple controversial finishes that we're going to discuss, as well as what is next in the lightweight division.
Yeah, there's a lot to catch up on that we missed. With UFC Vancouver and UFC Mexico City, a lot of two controversial stoppages in there, worth noting about, and then of course branching off with a lot of the lightweight fights that have been happening to, the lot going on there with the title and stuff. So, but yeah, starting with UFC Vancouver, it was with Todd Duffy's fight. That controversial eye poke.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy. I don't know if you want to call it a finish, but a controversial ending nonetheless.
Yeah. So there's a lot to talk about this one and how we want to relate it to the next event that happened, which was in UFC Mexico City with Jeremy Stephens.
Yeah, as far as the highs go for the business, it was definitely a couple of low points kind of back to back there between the Duffy and the Stephens endings. I think that, obviously it was a little bit different as far as when they took place and what people thought about this and that. So I think the thing, we'll just get right into it. We're our podcast, we're not trying to shit talk anybody. We're really not. We, if anything, we side with the fighter. And the main point, and we've discussed it before, we'll discuss it again because it's obviously a pretty strong theme that we have, is there's a lot of people out there that are hating on Duffy, hating on not necessarily Stephens per se, but the fight, just Yair and things. And
right
at the end of the day, it's kind of funny because you look at that situation, Duffy getting poked in the eye. Oh, he's an asshole. He's tired. He didn't really want to fight anyways. He was losing on the card. And we've kind of talked about that before just personally where, nobody knows that. Maybe very rarely do you know that, okay, I feel like I'm behind on the card, but you don't really know. You're not sitting there thinking consciously, oh, I'm behind on the card, so maybe I'll just take it. No, I really don't think that. But, Duffy, he's lambasted for not being able to continue. But then you have what happened a couple of days ago with Bisping. Literally pulls his eye out of his head on a podcast.
Yeah.
And this guy's celebrated as a hero. Don't get me wrong, I love Bisping. He's GOAT.
That's a really good relation bringing up the Bisping thing, because then you can see, here's the thing when I want to relate to Duffy's eye poke and Jeremy Stephens is, Jeremy Stephens was so early, he didn't feel any, of the pressure really into the fight, oh, they already got started, and he's like, oh, I'm being outclassed here, or something like that. It was 15 seconds, but this one, was, later in the first round with Duffy and Hughes. And, Duffy was actually having some success, rocking Hughes and had him against the cage and whatnot. But then people just saw him as tired and stuff like that. And they were like, all right, he was finding his way out right there. And you can see what, the generalizations people were making, comparing the two right there. But with what Jeremy Stephens happened right there, the scratch cornea, we haven't gotten any information on what the extent of the injury with Duffy was. But with that being said, it's what happened with Jeremy right there that he couldn't even open his eye. I guess with Duffy's, I'll have to look back again, but his eye, I believe, was open still. But, we don't know the extent of that damage and how, severe it could have been. Hence, with the Bisping thing,
Sure.
When he got that eye damage, he had to get a damn, prosthetic eye.
Sure. Well, this is the thing, man. It's Bisping, he's a certifiable badass, man. He's as tough as nails. He really is. Not everybody wants to say, hey, you know what? I can't see out of my eye, but I'm still going to go. Especially nowadays where this is the thing, too. We're talking about an eye poke, but this is a lot more than an eye poke because now you're starting to get into the whole, what do they get paid per fight? Health insurance, things like that. These things cost money. A lot of people might not realize that when you're a fighter, you're paying for your own camp. You're paying for not only that, but when you take your camp from one city to another city, these people have to get paid. This is their job. You're paying for flights. You're paying for hotels. Not everybody has comps and things like that.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of things that go into it. And we've come back to the Poirier fight a little bit too, knowing that you can't kind of continue. I feel like, obviously, it's one of those things that's tough because it's a really violent, tough, you got to be, needles and hammer and chisel and everything. It's a tough sport. It's not for everybody. But I think I really do respect guys that can say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to go on because I know I'm not going to give it my best. Not for nothing. Pressure's a lot of it too because Duffy had to know. when he can't go, when he's saying I can't go on, he has to know that he's going to get nothing but kickback and flack from this shit. He really, I mean, he has to know that that's going to happen. So so say that he says, you know what? I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for this if I don't continue to fight, so I'm going to keep going. I can't see it in my eye, but I'm going to pretend I'm okay. What happens if he gets hit with a shot that ends his career?
Exactly. That's the big thing right there, and that was what very close to what Bisping's situation was going to be, or most fighters that would have been in Bisping's situation would have stopped fighting. But this is another thing right there. These guys all have different personalities, different circumstances, so it's like not everyone's going to be as tough as Bisping is in that situation to be like, I'm going to still chase for that belt with one eye.
I don't even know if it's a tough thing, though, because that's like, to me, it's like, at the end of the day, I understand the point you're making, but I just want to reiterate one thing, too. We're not saying that Stevens and Duffy aren't tough.
No, exactly not. But that's what the fans are, like,
Sure.
alluding to, where you're like, you're a fighter, you got to fight through it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I hate that. It's just like, they are tough. They're in a damn cage right now fighting.
Exactly. That was my point. They're in there in the first place. That already makes them tough. You shouldn't question
their toughness right there. But they're just looking out for their career. They have families. They have lives and stuff like that. So it's just
there's nothing wrong with wanting to be able to see.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And I think
it breaks us down too. It's kind of like, obviously, the role of a fan is something that's important, because without fans, there is no UFC. There is no sport. I mean, there's always going to be fighting, but there's no organization. There's no build-up. The fans are, I think, with the UFC, more so with other sports, is I feel like you're more, like, for example, when the NBA has a press conference or the NFL has a press conference after a game, there's press there, but there's not necessarily rabid fans. When the UFC does a weigh-in or they do press conferences, it's all fans that are there. So I feel like there's definitely a closeness between fight fans and the UFC, and in this case, the UFC, more so than there is other sports. So that being said, I understand that people feel personally attached to these fighters and these outcomes and things. But at the end of the day, we're sitting here saying that, okay, at the end of it, really, the point is, at the end of the day, you don't know if that guy can see or not. You don't know the extent of that injury.
Well, that's the thing. What you're talking about right there with the fans and stuff. There's a different set group of fans, and actually, I feel like Todd Duffy, bringing back him up again. He said something great about that pre-fight, before his fight with Hughes, and that was, well, it was more directed towards the media, but I can relate it to, of course, the fans too. And it was about
that's right. Duffy, he did go on he did say something about that before, which is kind of ironic.
Yes, and it was about the fans but he was really aiming it towards the media,
more so
not respecting the fighters enough. But I do believe, and I'll go into more what he said if I remember everything correctly. But yes, there is a lot of media some media that don't respect the fighters as much. They're just really out there for the clickbaits, and they're just the way they ask these repetitive questions, they're also just trying to poke at the fighters to get them, get like heated stuff like feuds with other fighters and all that crap. But it's not us. But you also see a lot of great media out there that are asking the involving questions and about them and great stuff like that. But I also think it's also a big part of the fans, if you put in quotation marks, more like the casuals and stuff, that just watch for a finish. They don't respect it as much.
Well, I think it's important for us to say too, like, we're not sitting here and saying, hey, you can't have an opinion. You can't be upset about this outcome because you're not a fighter. You can't have an opinion unless you stood in the octagon. Like, we're not saying that. We get that not everybody has the ability to, we're not. I like football. It doesn't mean if I can't like football because I didn't professionally learn how to do this or I didn't play in college. You know what I mean? Like, you're a fan. We get it. But with that being said, some fans don't just leave it with saying, man, what a piece of shit. This guy couldn't finish the fight. That'd be one thing if you say that kind of in your house, under your, whatever. But people will tweet at these guys. They message these guys. They comment on these guys' things. It's like, you have no idea what this person went through. This is the thing with Duffy, just in this specific case. This guy is literally coming off an injury, hadn't fought in 3 years. Yeah. So the amount of pressure that he felt to get back in there, the work that he put in to get healthy again, it's not even just physical. It's emotional. It's mental. Those are super, super, looked over things in the fight game, is the mental aspect of things and fight psychology. But for him to go through all that stuff, to get back into the octagon to fight someone again, and then for someone to say that, oh, he knew he basically took the easy way out, to me that doesn't make any sense. Why the hell would you go through a whole camp, get in the thing, do all that stuff, just to not, to me, if you're just not trying to fight someone, you're just not going to do that. You know what I mean? You're just not going to take the fight.
That's true, but when I can see a little bit of the side of when he is tired and he is against.
But everybody gets tired.
No,
man.
no, but it's
everybody
like when
gets tired.
I think he got rocked in that fight too a little bit, but it was like when you
Sure.
realize that pressure in there, you're like, you can make it like, okay, maybe he didn't want out, but I just think, well, he also probably didn't think he felt 100%. He realizes he is, before going to that fight, he's fighting someone that can knock him out. So he's like,
But you know
well,
what?
I don't want to fight someone that's, if I can't, I'm not my 100% self,
I definitely think the thought process, and I could be wrong, but like I said, I'm not Duffy, so I can't tell you for certainty. And anybody
Right.
that thinks that they know for sure is full of shit. But what I can say is that I think him saying to himself, "Man, I really can't see. I'm at a disadvantage," was more playing. It was more important to him. Was actually something going through his mind rather than, "Oh, I'm tired. I don't want to be here anyways."
No,
I
yeah.
just I don't see that. I really don't see that.
Well, yeah, and he goes on to say, before that fight with that interview with the media, he was like, you guys don't build us up enough. You don't build up on our stories and really get in depth. And he's also saying, we come off a loss or something like that, and you trash us. And that's pretty much what happened. Like, he gets off that, no
I just feel like-
contest eye poke, and he kind of gets
Sure.
trashed. And I believe from some media I saw, where they were like, oh, some people were saying, oh, you wanted out and this and that. So
I just don't understand.
crazy.
Like, what do people expect? What do you expect to get out of it? Like, what do you gain? Just either watch the fights or don't watch the fights. But to comment on someone on their toughness or this and that, like, at the end of the day, they're a professional fighter. Like, I can't think of a tougher job to have. That, man, I got to get up and go to work tomorrow, and I know someone's gonna try to knock my head off. You know, I could potentially get a life-threatening injury. I could, there's so many things that happen that could happen. I really, to me,
and here's
it's like,
the thing, like, that fight happened, what was that, back in September.
a month ago or so.
Yeah, almost a month ago, and no one's talking about this anymore, of course. But
Sure.
and I'm not trying to say, hey, we're special here, but I mean, we are talking about it right now, and this is, we're in October 6th right now.
Sure.
And we don't. This is what happened. What I'm trying to mention right now is, like, these fans and media, they move on after a week, or not even a month.
Sure.
Unless it's a really big month, it lasts a month of talk. But
It's cyclical. Everything's cyclical.
it just gets washed over. The next event, everyone forgets the last one. But
Sure.
we're here. Well, when we see some good ties in, when this was also just 2 consecutive events that ended in a eye poke no contest, and then like you said, just Bisping. I didn't even make that realization, but him showing you that, it just makes a great topic to discuss right now.
Sure. And I think as fans, too, you have to kind of understand the fact that, listen, I know, obviously, when you're watching UFC, there's fight bonuses, there's knockout bonuses, there's things. So, you're kind of predetermined, you're predestined to expect that finish, either a sub or a KO. That's what you want. But you have to kind of acknowledge as a fan that, hey, sometimes there's going to be things that happen in there that are totally batshit crazy that you can't plan for, and it's just part of the fight business.
Exactly.
When you're literally, I honestly can't think of a fight that I've seen that there was no eye pokes, incidental or not. I mean, even the Stipe Cormier fight, there was eye pokes just because of the way people keep their hands up and they position. I mean, it is what it is. So that being said, when you know that that's something that's going to happen potentially in a fight, you can't be so shocked and upset that it happens in a way that someone is unable to continue. It just kind of, it's like one of those things, like with basketball, with jumping. At some point or another, you're going to land on somebody's foot, right? You're going to sprain your ankle. Nobody says, oh, what a fucking loser that guy is for not getting back up and playing on a sprained ankle. So I think the biggest thing is the fact that you could see if a guy breaks his leg. Gordon Hayward, I'm a Celtics fan, when he almost knocked his fucking foot off a couple seasons ago, coming down, landing wrong, dislocated his ankle, everything was terrible. You can see that. But I think because it's something that you can't physically see, like even Mike Perry with his nose, or Cowboy with his eye popped out of his head, you can see that stuff. So I think it's more accepting for people. I think people need to do a better job of accepting things that they can't see too.
Right. That's a good point right there, man.
I
Now,
mean, I'm not trying to be philosophical, like, there's inside wounds that people have too. But at the end of the day, what if Duffy's eye is fucked up? What if it comes out that he's got a scratch cornea and he can never fight again?
those are
Now this
serious.
guy, his whole income is gone, and now all we've done is talk shit about him because, oh, look at him, he was tired, he was getting beat anyways. So what?
And that's what I'm hoping he recovers or whatever. I mean, I'm sure he's recovered. Who knows? But I know he had to get a checkup. But I'd like to
I
hear
mean, they're going to
from
be
him
kind of
soon.
secretive what they do too, because they don't
Yeah.
want opponents to know. And I mean, look at Bisping. Literally, it's been how long since he fought, and we're just finding out about this stuff now. I mean, that's even on the Rogan podcast. He was kind of like, Rogan's like, your eye looks great. What did you? He's like, And Rogan's like, oh, you don't want to talk about it? He's like, no, I'll talk. They're still, even though he's not fighting, they're still hesitant to let someone know that's like, oh, this is something that could potentially be something that, affects me long term.
Yeah. So going to Jeremy Stevens right now, because I really want to talk a little bit about that one too, is you know, that was his eye was shut for I mean even a longer period of time after that fight was over with. I
Right.
forget how long after, but it was still a good time until the next day, or he had an eye patch on for maybe a little while, but it wasn't like a long like over a day or so, 24 hours.
Sure.
But he recovered. I guess it was like the next day actually, where he was already talking on camera saying, "Hey, I want that fight again, this and that." But I mean that was a almost a pretty good bullet dodge where now they're able to rebook that fight for UFC on ESPN 6, which headlines Dominic Reyes and Chris Weidman.
Well, let me ask you a question. So, speaking of rebooking a fight, what if? How do you feel about if any fight that ends in some kind of incident like that, they automatically rebook?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
Why
a lot
not,
of
right?
huh?
Why not? Right?
I mean, it would make sense, of course.
Run it back.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I feel like they might do that with the Duffy and Hughes fight. I could have seen the same. Well, let me ask you this: would you have seen the same for Kat Zagano and Megan Anderson?
100%. I would have ran that fight back.
Yeah,
Definitely would have ran that fight back. But I
Yeah.
feel like at the end of the day, I love Kat. She's one of my favorite fighters, and I don't want to get too involved into her because we could do a whole podcast just on her and the shit
sure.
she's
She
been
has
with, but
she has a really in-depth
story
story.
is just
Oh my
incredible.
gosh.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. You have to. I feel like. Mm-hmm. You have to.
Of course. I mean, especially if it's a no contest, it's like, well, then the fight
this is
never got to a
here's the
decision.
thing, right? What's like the biggest thing that people get pissed off about nowadays? Interim belts, right? Interim belts. Why? Because there's not a clear, decisive champion.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's no different with finishes. Unless there's a clear, decisive finish, run the fight back.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, it's obviously you don't want to. I'm not talking about that with a decision because if you didn't get the decision, you didn't get the decision. I mean, I know that stuff happens, but we're talking about something kind of crazy like a freak accident. I mean, I don't know, like even the Silva fight where he snapped his leg in half. Yeah, maybe the next fight, run it back. It's some freak thing, finish it
Right.
off because you want, people want the finish. You're mad at Duffy because you didn't get the finish. You want the finish, so let's do it. Let's run it back again.
Exactly. Yeah, and now going back again with Stevens and Yair, there was like a lot of I think there was like initial hate. I mean, not from me, but like from a lot of people, like, oh wow, Stevens this and that. But like, that's another guy who's like never question the toughness of that guy. The
Yeah,
wars
it
and
definitely
stuff
got a
he's
little
going
kind
through.
of gray at the end there, as far
But
as
then,
like when.
but then the script kind of flipped because Yair, he started saying things, afterwards, like, blaming it all on Stevens for not continuing and stuff, and then he started to
You
get a
should
lot
have
of
had
hate.
tougher retinas, I guess.
Oh my gosh, craziness! So I'm so glad they were able to rebook that fight. What happened was with the fight night that Dominic Reyes and Chris Weidman are headlining. It had Zabit versus Calvin Cater or
Right.
Cater, but that fight fell out and got rebooked somewhere else because I guess Zabit got injured. But what is great is then they come in because that's like another like exciting fight like that has a cool technician and whatnot.
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that it was the first round too, so quick in the first round, like the turnaround of that fight. I mean, unless Stevens is really hurt, there's not like a medical suspension you're going to be looking at. They
Exactly.
didn't do. It's like they were 3 or 4 rounds into something. And,
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Well, that's why I was saying I'm glad that they were able to book it really, a quick
I was honestly
turnaround right
surprised that
there.
it got rebooked so fast. I thought it was going to be kind of one of those things that they just were like, whatever, we'll do something else again. But
Yeah, I mean it was good that Stevens' eye didn't get
Yeah.
too injured.
that's lucky,
right there.
man. You're dodging a bullet. I mean, look at Zingano. She was really messed up for a while.
Oh gosh, yeah. Dang, I forgot about that. But
that's the craziest thing too. It's like if you think
while.
about it, that was her last UFC fight. So it's like, man, that's gonna, especially she could lose 100 fights in a row, and she's still looking for that 101st fight. So you know that has to bother her tremendously. The fact that that was her last fight in the UFC. I think she'll be back.
Yeah, there was some talk. If I can remember what she had a little interview with Hawani a while back, but she was saying that she had to do some little thing for ESPN Plus, like her show and whatnot.
Yeah, she's doing something behind the cameras.
Yeah, but I know she's going to be fighting for probably some other organizations, and then I think she'll find her way back to UFC, most likely. Yeah. There's a chance, because she said she still wants that Holly Holm fight.
Man, you know what? I'd love to see her. See, this is tough because I'd love to see her fight Nunes again, since she was the last person to stop Nunes. But I mean, obviously, I know they're never going to book that fight unless she gets a couple wins under the belt,
Right.
But it's just, be one of those things. I'd be really interested to see that matchup.
Yeah, man.
Especially with Cyborg gone. I mean, it's like, who do you put against Nunes? But topic for a different day.
But going back to some, other fights we missed, in UFC Vancouver, big fight with like Gaethje win over Cowboy. So I feel like we should, delve in really deep into the lightweight division right now. Basing off, what the title picture is right now.
Well, I mean, there's so many things going on too. Just even the Bisping stuff reminds me of GSP, and we get that going on with the lightweight division. And first and foremost, so all right, obviously, Gaethje pulls out the win over Cowboy. Cowboy takes it in stride like usual. Dominant win for Gaethje. But so it's kind of like, I don't know, a month ago, 3 weeks ago, we really thought we had pretty set in stone what's next for a couple different fighters, and like everything happens in the fight world, things change overnight.
Oh man!
So we went from having, Khabib Ferguson is a lock. This is it. This is no other way. It can be anything else. We don't even know if that fight's going to happen now.
It's so crazy to think that fight is not next.
It's beyond crazy.
But because you're getting all these parties coming in, that it's involved with the lightweight division. I'm not even talking about the fighters that are involved. Sure. You got,
representatives,
managers, family,
right?
All this and whatnot, and it's just too many monkey wrenches thrown in. I thought Conor was one of the biggest monkey wrenches, and you're getting all these managers saying,
well, now with Conor,
GSP,
you got him facing assault charges now. So it's like, I mean, is he even going to be able to fight?
Man, there's so much to talk about right there too. Is now we were thinking after that Gaethje win, I want to go back to that real quick, is
because he was the first one to throw some shit out there to Conor when he won.
Well, he said they were hyping it up like, hey, if you get this win, you're gonna get that Conor fight, because it was with either Cowboy or Cowboy and Conor. Cowboy and Gaethje were pretty much promised that fight, as a return for Conor like a while back. Both of those fell through.
They just tipped us with the Conor Cowboy fight too, because they were both into it. We'll toast some proper 12 afterwards. I was looking forward to that fight.
And then there was one where there was also with Gaethje that was close to getting booked, but then Conor got injured. I forgot what timeline that was, but it was not too long ago. And then he gets asked about Conor, and he's like, that guy's retired. I want to fight for the belt now, and he rightfully deserves.
We were talking about before. I think that was a shot fired a little bit just to stir up some shit.
Yeah, but then he did go on to like the ESPN desk and was like, "Well, I know I said that, but of course, if they offer me the fight, I'll take it." But he was kind of being like, "Hey, I'm going to shoot my shot at the title too." And I feel like after Tony, then he would deserve something like that. But that's going to be a long time, because no fight is booked for the title yet. So it's like, take that Conor fight in the meantime while you wait.
For Gaethje?
Yeah, absolutely. But now it's crazy now, because, like you said, with Conor with the assault charges, he has facing possible jail time. So was like, well, damn, is now Gaethje might want to take, someone like that rematch with Dustin, but now Dustin wants Conor.
I know.
And then get this now, Khabib is now like, all right, we're all thinking he's gonna fight Tony, but then people are saying, no, GSP. That was for a little while. Like after that fight, they were like, the managers were saying, oh, GSP's next, not Tony. Then Dana's saying, Tony's next, of course. But then he was saying, if Tony doesn't want it, then Conor. And then he's saying, Tony's first. But if Khabib can get through Tony, then we'll bring in GSP. So that's what I think is going to happen. That's what I've called a while. I don't know if we had it recorded on a podcast, but I said that's how you need to go about it. Like, have Tim fight Tony. If he gets through Tony, then bring GSP. But like throwing him in now is just gonna be like, just get Tony in there first, please. Like that's the fight.
Dude, the next lightweight title fight has to go through Ferguson.
Absolutely.
It has to.
Well,
If
this
it's
is
anything other than Ferguson, to me, it's not a title fight.
well. Here's the thing with that one. So Tony made an announcement on his social media saying fight news coming soon, and that was about a couple weeks ago, I think.
Right.
Now he did the same thing with Pettis. I don't know how long after when he announced the Pettis one. Like he was like, "A fight news coming." Then I don't know how much later, and then he said, "It's with Pettis." So I don't know what the timeline will be from when he announced that a couple weeks ago till now. But one can assume, hey, it's Habib, and he's saying in all the interviews for a long time now, it's the title shot or bust. But I'm thinking the only wild card to throw in there that would get Tony interested in a different fight than the title. And he said, he'll accept. He said this in the past, but that was before like he's gone through another 2 people pretty much, or a couple more people. But Conor, I feel like if it's not Habib, it has to be Conor. But like at the same time, like I don't want that fight. I want he needs the title.
I really don't think he wants that fight, man. I feel like
I don't know, man. I feel like if they weren't gonna give him the title shot or something was dumb and he wasn't able to fight for the title right then and way, then they'd be like, here's Conor. He must return because he wants to kill Conor pretty much.
I could definitely see though, especially if they do Habib versus Tony. If Tony wins that fight, I could see him doing a Conor call out.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
that happening.
For sure.
It's just so crazy.
But,
man.
but I don't think
this guy
they would.
is still so polarizing in the division.
Yeah.
He's fought twice in the division. He beat Aldo at featherweight, never went back to the featherweight division. He fought, obviously, he beat Alvarez, and it's just like, wow, like this guy is so in the middle of everything. It's like he can't get away. You can't keep him away. It's
crazy.
It's mind-boggling to me.
But I mean, like if I just kind of now looking back to what I just said there, I'm like, I can't even imagine them, hitting Tony up and saying, hey, we can't get the Habib fight. Here's Conor. Like, that doesn't make sense to me because I feel like he'd be like, no, the title.
I feel like at this point, the only way that Ferguson takes another fight besides Habib is if Habib gets hurt.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
And
that's
maybe
I think that was
offer
what I
him-
was kind of alluding to. Is like if
Right.
that was if they offer Conor, I would have to be something like Habib's not ready.
hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, like, come on. It's just that would just hurt. That would just hurt because then we would have to wait even longer. And then let's say Tony gets injured and then Habib fights, somebody else.
Sure.
So it's just like So anyway, I'm thinking that fight news is ready. We're gonna see.
Do you think that they already have something booked?
What is there something booked for December? Because Conor was saying something about December 14th. Now, I'll have to look this
let's
up.
play. Let's do a quick little thing.
Because I'm trying to wonder if they have. I feel like that was the fight that could have happened. The set date it would be for Tony and Habib is in December. Before the end of the year. I'm just trying to figure out.
Let's do a quick little game, right? I'm gonna say a fighter, and then you respond with who their next fight is. You ready for this one?
All right, cool.
Cowboy.
Oh man, well I'm about to start talking about a little bit of results from UFC 243, but I'm gonna
We
say
don't have to just tell me a name, and we can get into it later.
I'm gonna say Dan Hooker.
Ooh. Okay. All right. Ready? Here's another one for you. Poirier.
I want. Damn, that's so hard.
Right?
I can I say between 2 people?
Sure.
All right, Conor or Gaethje.
Okay. So here's my next one. Conor.
Jesus.
I think this is the most exciting division in the UFC. I really do.
Well, let me get this. You think I'm gonna say lightweight fighter? I'm gonna say it could be a featherweight fighter right there.
You think so?
I think so. There's been a little bit of chirp with Frankie Edgar. I think that could very well happen.
I don't know, man. I'd love to see I'd love to see a Holloway McGregor rematch.
Yeah, and by the way, December 14th, I'm so stupid. I was like, I think that's the Max Holloway and Volkanovski fight. That's what it is. And then it's Amanda Nunes and Jermaine in the co-main. So yeah.
Sure.
I don't know. Let's see. So I feel like probably Conor's return would be like early 2020, but I don't know, man. Like
Dude, it's so exciting to try to figure out who the next fight is because it's literally like, talking about Dan Hooker, he lost to beat Al last night. So, I mean, Al's kind of out of the mix a little bit now. So, I mean, there's only so many fights they're going to do.
Well, I want to say about that one, if it's not, we can touch more on it into tomorrow's episode, but I want to say, like, another opponent for Dan Hooker, if it's not Cowboy, maybe Felder. He got off a win over Edson Barboza.
Let me ask you one question. Who did Dan call out last night?
Dustin Poirier.
Right.
I feel that's okay. I don't think he gets that shot. I
think he would win that fight, man. I really do.
It's a tough fight, man. That's like a really tough one.
The only thing that bothers me about Dan Hooker, Dan, I love you, big fan, but man, you got to keep your hands up, dude. You're gonna get caught. You're gonna fight some of these other guys that are sharp because Hooker is so sharp. He's so accurate. He reminds me a little bit of McGregor with his striking. Like he's very accurate. Doesn't really waste shots, but he keeps his hands so low. And we've seen what happens. I'm not gonna mention names. Luke Rockhold. When you keep your hands low, you get knocked out, and it's just a matter of time before I mean, not for nothing, he's a huge guy, so he's used to fighting littler guys. They have a really hard time getting in on him. But when you start fighting, imagine him versus like a Holloway or something like that. When you fight like a tall, lanky guy like that, you're going to get caught.
Yeah, man. It's tough about his next matchup, though.
I
really don't know about the Dustin Poirier thing. I feel like really Dustin wants... For him, that'd be really
Dustin
going
is
backwards.
Dead set on that McGregor fight.
Yeah.
He really is.
He also said... I feel like if it's either Conor or Gaethje for him...
Sure.
I would have to. We'll talk more into what's next for Al and Dan tomorrow because I do want to say some stuff about Al.
Right.
But Dan, I feel like I'll mention it again. Felder or Cowboy would be a good one where he's not jumping all the way to number one, even though he's very deserving and he has the skill to back it up. But I feel like there's such a stacked division that the guys that are in the top 5 should be fighting each other pretty much. Al took a big sacrifice right there, big step or decision to do that.
I feel like for the first time in a long time, I'm like really just okay with whatever fights get made in this division.
You know what? I'll bring this one up.
Can't forget about Felder either.
I'll bring this one up right now because it just dawned upon me. Kevin Lee made his debut in welterweight, against Rafael Dos Anjos, but that didn't go his way. But then he's training with GSP at TriStar, and he seemed to be doing changing his whole self and whatnot. And I'm like super excited to see his turn. But then he accepts the fight with the fight that nobody wanted, no one is asking for, and that's Gregor Gillespie, the dominant wrestler. Undefeated, and Kevin Lee's been saying for a long time that he favors himself in a Habib match and whatnot. And, Kevin Lee's a great wrestler. So, I mean, hey, all the power to him, he wants to prove himself against those type of guys. And now that he's really figuring himself out, I feel, at TriStar with GSP, we could very well see, a very more mature and intelligent fighter here. But man, going against Gregor Gillespie, and going back to lightweight, I mean, things are all changing around. I mean, he looked better, at welterweight, filled in, in more of himself, and fit and whatnot. But, I hope. This is what I hate. Like, I hate. There's these matchups where I'm like, you don't want any of them to lose. They're like you never imagined them to get matched up. You're seeing them go on these little trajectories in their paths, and then you're like, oh no, like you're throwing those guys in there, like because. This is how when they're almost like little stars in their way. Not big stars, but they're all trying to go on their path and whatnot. And then you're like, oh, you throw these two in and you're disrupting it.
Well, because that someone taking a loss could really kind of impact the next
well, that's what I'm saying with I'm saying with Al right there. I never imagined the Al and Dan Hooker matchup, especially with their rankings. But I was like, that's a fight I
never liked that fight for Al. I never did.
But it was a fight that I was like, oh, I never imagined that to be booked, but now I'm glad to see it in a sense. But I'm also like, well, damn, these guys are also trying. I mean, they're all going out, but you think when the lower rank ones, you just have them battle out. But I mean, Dan has been proving himself to fight against the higher rank too. So, but it was just like it was a big one, a big sacrifice for Al from going, getting beaten by number 15th when he was ranked number 6.
Yeah, it was definitely fun to watch last night.
Yeah,
but I
very
mean,
was.
it's that division to me. It's really. I feel like obviously wins and losses make a difference, and when you're jumping people, it's very important. But I feel like even more so with that fight, it's just with that division, it's just like wow. There's such little wiggle room between the next matchups, and I don't know. I feel like Hooker, he kind of reminds me of like a young Condit. And I feel like I see a lot of kind of similarities between just the fighting styles and things. And I really like Hooker. I think he's going to be someone that's going to be...
And, he's training at City Kickboxing, with all, like, Israel, Alex Volkanovski.
That whole team is so scary.
Yeah, they're becoming, like, almost the new AKA because, I mean, Alex Volkanovski... Oh, man, this is... All right, we got to hold off because that's a talk for... That's a talk for next
There's a lot of good stuff going on.
But I want to talk about, of course, Israel's win tomorrow. But, you know... Did you want to get into more about, with the lightweight division with, the title picture? I mean, GSP, is that a match that you would like to see with Habib?
See, this is the thing, man. I love GSP.
He's cutting down weight, by the way.
I know, but I don't want to see, like, I don't know.
Ready.
All right. As a fan, I want to see GSP fight. But as a fan, I also don't want to see GSP get mauled. I don't want to see him get mauled by Habib. I don't know, man. It's one of those things.
So you don't favor a GSP in that match,
no,
do you?
I do. But at the same token,
well, anything can happen, right?
This is the thing, right? Until someone proves otherwise, Habib has mauled everyone wrestling, keeping people on the mat, not letting people get position. Poirier literally yelling in his corner, "I can't get this fucking guy off of me." He's dominant like that. So the guy literally fights bears, so what are you going to do? So what if it ends up happening that he gets GSP on the ground and just smothers him for 5 rounds? I don't know.
I don't know, man. I like I was saying, I think, of course, right now how it's going, you just gotta get Conor out of the way, like as in like push him aside. I mean, don't try to let him in.
If I had a wish, I would wish that the whole build up to the Gregor Habib fight was different, so that with that outcome, we maybe could have got like that immediate rematch or something like that. Because I really, really would have liked to see. Obviously now the circumstances it's a little different, but just from a pure fight perspective, because it's kind of the same thing. Like when McGregor fought, we were supposed to fight Aldo, ended up fighting Mendez on short notice for the interim belt. Oh, striker, wrestler. Oh, what's going to happen? Blah 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 blah. And then we know what happened with that. Right. So obviously Habib's on a much higher level than Mendez was, but I really would have liked to see that kind of ran back as far as what they both would have done differently, because I don't think it would have been the same outcome. But
I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
I don't think
how would its circumstances be different than
circumstances? I think the outcome would be different.
But I mean, like, you're saying if circumstances were different back then.
I'm saying if there wasn't so much hate in the build-up and the riot at the end of it and all that other kind of bullshit that went along with it, I think that they might have booked a rematch.
I get you, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that. Yeah, it's been a year since that fight, exactly a year from today. And
I don't think the UFC is ever going to book Habib versus McGregor again.
No, I don't know. I really
don't think that ever happens.
Yeah, you're right. Because I mean, well, I'm just saying if within that year of Conor I feel like the circumstances would be different for that rematch to happen. Is Conor getting back in line after that loss? But he was.
I don't think it ever happens, to be honest.
No. But I'm saying
I feel like it's just kind of one of those things where I feel like McGregor didn't fight his game plan. He fought a defensive fight rather than an offensive fight, because I feel like it's literally everybody's saying it. His coach is probably telling him like, "Oh, this is what you do. You're gonna get taken down. This is what you do." Like nobody, he even said he's like, "I didn't fight offensively. I fought defensively." I would have really liked to see him fight that second time, but it's never gonna happen again.
Right. Well, yeah, I definitely see that. It's probably there's a big chance. It's a bigger chance now than ever that it won't happen again. But like I said, Tony first, and I feel like then no doubt. I feel Habib's last fight is just GSP right there. Like it or not.
Really?
I really think so, I think we've talked about this on a pod before anyway, but
I definitely feel like
it's worth
Habib's going to go out on his
again.
own terms. He's not going to do anything he doesn't want to do, and I feel like he's going to be one of those guys that retires somewhat early.
Right.
At least earlier than people might have thought or wanted him to. Mm-hmm.
But this is the thing when it just gets all crazy, because then we're saying there's no chance maybe that Conor does get that rematch, but then you hear Khabib's dad saying, "Oh, if Conor wants, Khabib again, Moscow's ready." It's just like all these people are saying it. His managers are saying it. It's just like you don't know what to believe. You don't know what to, if this stuff is going to happen again.
Can you honestly see Dana knowing everything he knows about both of those people? And I mean, for all intents and purposes, it seems like Conor's kind of on the verge of like a mental breakdown. I mean, I really just don't think he books that fight just for the what if this happens or what if that happens. And I mean, what if it's worse and somebody gets killed? There's no coming back from that.
Definitely don't have.
I feel like it took a long time for people to kind of get that taste out of their mouth as far as that result too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been talked about to the end, and people blamed both people. And I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter who you think was the bigger kind of antagonizer or this and that, because they're both of their actions were inexcusable. Maybe Conor's are more inexcusable leading up to the fight, and Khabib's were definitely more inexcusable after the fight. But I don't know, man. That's like just such the opposite of what the sport needs.
You made a good point right there, and this is kind of going lighter on that, but it's like a little bit of a similarity, but it's like what these fighters like, DC, saying, "Oh, I don't want he wouldn't want his last fight in the UFC to be against John Jones because that's just too much negativity." And Bisping said the same thing, before he was retiring. He's like, of course I would want to get that Vitor win back or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, I wouldn't want that to be my last fight in the UFC because I would just be too much negativity. Yeah. He would trash talk the end of it and whatnot. So he was having fun with GSP at the end. It wasn't like or however.
There was respect. There wasn't hate.
But anyway, so had to relate it with that. So I could see Khabib being like, when I'm out of here, it's not like I want to end mine with, this, negativity and stuff with Conor, trashing my religion and family and whatnot.
It just got super deep, man. It got super scary. Yeah, just as a fan, it's like, wow, this is just way too dark for me.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like in some conspiracy theory kind of dramatic, like,
it didn't feel fun
Jason
at all.
Bourne kind of movie where it was just not good.
No, absolutely not.
Not good at all. I mean, you know what I feel like? At the end of the day, fighting is cool because it brings everybody together, different religions, different races, different countries. Mm-hmm. It's that one thing that kind of unites everybody. And that whole thing was just something that just really polarized things as far as religion. And it made people kind of choose sides, I feel like. And that's not at all what I feel like the good parts about the sport are.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
But, with that said, there's so many other fights that could potentially happen in this division. Between this division and the featherweight division, I know that we've had some guys kind of go back and forth and this and that, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just happy with the fights kind of booked at everything. I feel it's kind of good that you have fighters like Conor or fighters like, even Poirier to an extent. Like, they can kind of jump back and forth between the two. But I don't know, man. Poirier's probably just, you had the Holloway fight. Now you had the Khabib fight. He's definitely looking for the money fight. He's probably looking for one more fight, get the money fight, trying to get Conor because he knows that would draw numbers and then ride off into the sunset. And I don't know. Maybe Conor doesn't want that fight. Maybe Dana doesn't want that fight. We don't really know for sure.
And like I was saying, I feel like, there's a great chance that Conor doesn't even, continue with the lightweight division. You could just be like,
sure.
I'm just going to go in the, compete in the featherweight division. Like
you see him wanting to, I feel like I don't know because he hated dropping that weight though.
He was really expressing himself, through that interview and whatnot, and through Twitter saying, Frankie Edgar. He was even mentioning, of course, Holloway, but Aldo, and those guys, would love to get those.
Does anybody want to
back.
See McGregor versus Aldo now? Does anybody really want to see that fight?
I know Aldo would, but I mean,
does he really,
Conor. I mean, from what I'm getting from him, he's almost trying to sound like his old self, where he's, about accepting and fighting anyone and again. So, but like I said, I'll believe it when I see it, but I just don't want to go off and say, he's going to be continuing the lightweight division. I feel like he might maybe jump around, but then again, there's that big side where everyone's like, and they're serious. They're not even trying to joke. And it's like, I don't believe that guy's ever going to fight again.
Yeah.
And do you think do you think that's a big chance too? That we don't even see
fights again?
Yeah, we're talking about that he's coming back, but
I have a couple things on this. So number one, the whole thing with McGregor, it's kind of like the John Jones stuff. I mean, McGregor at the end of the day, he's 31 years old. He just turned 31. He's still super young. Mm-hmm. Same thing with John Jones. John Jones missed years of his fight career for whatever reason, and he's still super young. So I feel like if McGregor wants to fight, He still has a career. We're not talking about someone like GSP who's, 38 years old, 37, 38 years old, maybe even older than that a little bit. It's a little, your window is a little different. Like McGregor could not fight for 2 years, come back and still have his prime in the cage. But I kind of feel like it's one of those things where my thing that I think is going to happen, or maybe not will happen, but the thing that I could think is a possibility, McGregor might just hold out for the fight, hold out for a fight that he wants that he just never gets. So it's if he doesn't take the Poirier fight, he doesn't take, the Gaethje fight because he's holding out for this, holding out for that fight. What if those fights never come? What if that Habib fight never comes again?
Well, I
what
think
if that Ferguson fight never comes? Next thing you know, it's 2 years go by, he hasn't fought. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of a more realistic possibility than him just not wanting to fight.
Well, I think he was holding out a little bit just to see the results of, Poirier or Habib and Poirier, and then, Justin and Cowboy. But, I feel like now they probably have something getting, running together. Going off what you're saying right there is like, I don't know. I feel like fighters that do take off a long layoff really, for, a good amount of them actually don't really affect them. We've seen with Nate.
The ring rust stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going with Dominic Cruz. I'm what he says right here with the ring rust thing is I'm kind of like split between it. I can see the factor that for some people, maybe it can affect them. And then for some others, it's like, I'm still, training, every day. And you saw with Nate Diaz, he made improvements in that gap of time. There's another fighter too. I'm GSP, of course, too. You can say for him. So it's just like, I feel like there's a argument that, taking those long periods of time off, what TJ is going to have to go through now. It's like, what I want to say about what Dom Cruz was saying, because he said in an interview about like, that's not a bad thing. Like taking that amount of time off, 2-3 years or so, like that's, can be almost a blessing for fighters because then they just improve.
Gives you time to heal, right?
Yeah, sure.
I think that some people might make, they might incorrect think that, a fighter takes 2 years off, they don't have anything to do with fighting for 2 years. That's not the case. People still train, they still work, they still do things, but it's just, you're letting your body heal. Because a lot of fighters, they walk into a fight, they're not 100%. They have injuries from camp that they haven't gotten over. There's a tolerance between what the UFC kind of allows you to fight with and having to pull out. So, I mean, there's a lot of fighters that can go. Someone only knows you're hurt if you say you're hurt. There's definitely fighters out there that don't let anyone know that they're hurt, that are nursing an injury, a ligament injury or sprain or something like that. And they go in there and they're not 100%. So that time off is just, it lets them kind of heal a little bit. But I don't know. I mean, I think Conor looked sharp. I don't think he didn't look sharp in the fight with Habib. I think he just fought someone else's fight for the first time. He didn't fight his fight. And I mean, I feel like, I think it was just a technique thing, a kind of a strategy thing more so than an endurance thing, or because he's always had problems with endurance and this and that. So.
Yeah, man. So I feel like we pretty much wrapped up really well on, the lightweight division, what its current standings are.
It's a super interesting division. It's really interesting. I mean, there's a lot of fights, and like I said before, at the end of the day, I'm happy with whatever fight gets made. I really don't see anything happening that I'm like, oh, they made this fight. I really think I'll be happy with anything that they do.
Do you want to actually touch on something real quick? What would be next for Cowboy? Do you feel like he still continues in the lightweight division, or he just kind of, if he's close to ending his career, just kind of hop around, go up to welterweight a little bit, have fun there or whatever. I feel like he can just do whatever fight. We're all going to watch. So what's your stance on that actually?
Well, I feel like with Cowboy, I could see a couple things happening. I don't think that, I mean, he said he still wants to fight for the title. So
that's
especially
true.
with Al kind of losing, Barbosa losing. I mean, there's only so many guys that are kind of maybe that next in line, like Gaethje, Ferguson. I mean, who else is there? I mean, who else gets the title shot? But I really could see something. I don't know. I mean, I could almost kind of see it coming out of left field. Like maybe they will do the Cowboy Conor fight. Maybe a fight will happen that we're not even thinking about, we're not even discussing, but it kind of comes out and surprises us. But I see Cowboy staying in that division. And there's really no need to move around, especially with the people taking. He's not the only guy taking losses in that division.
Right. Well, it means Donald stands at ranked number 5 in the division.
Sure.
So I mean, a fight with ranked number 3 Conor could make sense, but also. Maybe it's a Barboza fight, something like that. I mean,
2 guys coming off losses, that wouldn't be a terrible fight.
And they're both like, continuously fighting for the title, but pretty much falling short a lot.
Sure.
So
I mean, that's unfortunately, I feel like with Cowboy, he's fought great until title fights.
so I mean, and they're both having their ups and downs, so that fight could make
That makes
sense.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And if
I kind of feel like, I don't know, man, I wouldn't be surprised to see like a Hooker Cowboy fight. I really wouldn't be.
that too, and if you want to, I mean, of course I want to talk about this tomorrow, but I mean, I feel like will make sense to talk about it now. But I mean, with Al, Al could be fighting, Felder, something like that could make sense. I mean, I don't know if Felder would want to take him coming off a loss. So what about
Well,
a
we can't
Felder?
forget about Pettis too.
Yeah, or a Felder and Cowboy fight. That could make
I could see
sense.
Felder and Cowboy. I could see that.
Damn, like look at these match. They're all pretty good. They all any matchup if you just re-roll some dice with their names on it, and match them up like that, or just do the little flipping card match
That
game.
might be what it comes down to, trying to make a fight in this division.
Exactly. Just put their names in a bowl and pick two at a time.
Yeah, it literally the lightweight division right now, the top 5, you could take the top 7 guys, write their names on a piece of paper, put them in a hat, pull out 2 at a time, and you have great fights.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at 1 through 15 right now, and I feel like, I mean, don't match any up of the most of the top 5 with the top 10 or 15, but I mean, pretty much anywhere from 5 and 15, I feel like any of those can be great matchups.
I kind of feel like I feel like they might do like a Cowboy Hooker fight.
Okay.
And that's their way of getting Hooker into the top 5. That's way of him getting into
Right.
at least the top 10, because I feel like he's going to be in the title picture a lot sooner than later.
Right. I feel like if Hooker wants that Dustin fight, then he has to fight, another big fight.
I feel like that's a huge jump. As much as, I mean, it's a good call out, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I don't think, I don't think that they're going to. I think you did, that is kind of a step back for Dustin, like you said. But I
Yeah.
could definitely see Cowboy coming in and be like, I'll fight him. You want a top 5 guy?
Oh
I'll
gosh,
take,
he will
I'll take
fight
a shot.
anyone. Well,
I like that fight. I do like that fight. I feel like Hooker. I don't know. Who knows, man? It's so hard to predict, because I feel like, first off, if there's one fighter I'd never want to count out, it's Cowboy, because he'll surprise the shit out of you. He really will. But man, I've said it 100 times. There's not a bad fight. There's not a bad fight
Absolutely
they can make here.
not.
There's really not. I mean, well, I think the only bad fight they can make isn't even a fight that they're making. It's just a fight that they won't make.
Yeah.
So I think if it's not Habib Ferguson next, then that's a mistake. But I honestly wouldn't mind seeing whoever they fight next if it's not each other.
Sure. I mean, that's a hard one for me. The number one lightweight fight I want to see is Habib versus Tony. Like,
It has to be that fight.
I mean,
How
like,
can-
I feel
how
like
can you not have that fight?
I don't think there's not one fight I would rather not see.
It's got everything, and
And
especially
then-
if Ferguson
yeah.
wins that comeback story. Oh my God!
Oh, jeez, that's such an
Coming back
interesting.
from all
I
the
can't.
issues
I can't
and
wait to
claiming
analyze
the
that
belt.
one. I can't wait
It's
to
gonna
go
be-
in depth with that one, because that's such an interesting one. But what I want to say back about Hooker is, he's really saying he wants to prove himself, and he's saying, I have the tank to go 5 rounds. Like, he wants to prove
He really
himself in a
does.
5-rounder. So I feel like the next fight for him, and what was good about him shooting a shot, with Dustin Poirier, he doesn't get it, but it tells him how high he's trying to go. So they're
Sure.
going to be like, all right, we'll gift you with a guy like Cowboy, or we'll gift you with someone like that.
Well, I think that's a
they'll
smart call-out.
And what they should do is they need to main a fight night, so he
Yeah.
can be at top.
Right.
If you just I mean, honestly, Al and Hooker would have been a fight night. That's a fight night type of fight.
Sure.
So Hooker definitely deserves that main headlining spot. Just against who? That's a question. And honestly, him shooting a shot at for Dustin also isn't a bad thing, because that fight very well could happen too. We don't know how these matchups happens. Like, well, this guy's injured, this thing, and then Dustin's gonna be like, all right, I'll take him. I'll prove. He says he wants to fight me. All right, like, because Dustin's gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna put it on him, and then and Dan's saying the same thing. What was he saying in the Octagon interview? Like, I'm gonna take you out. Like, he's
Yeah.
really this is the most aggressive we've really seen him.
It was such a smart call out though, because if he called out Habib, it's like, okay, nobody really.
That kind of gets laughed
Nobody
at,
jumps
but
that,
with
right?
Dustin,
But
it
Poirier,
makes
it's like,
yeah.
okay. That's, I think, exactly what
It
he was
made
looking
me
for.
interested, but also made me like, well, I don't know if they're gonna really gift you that one, but it tells you how high, like I said, he's shooting with that. So I like his.
I think he's going to be up. He's going to be close. Man, he's going to be hard to beat. He's got so much size for the division. It's kind of like McGregor and the featherweight division.
Oh God,
He's so big for that division.
Yeah, dude. Jeez.
So I mean, it's Jesus Christ. He made Al just look. That was a really bad fight for Al, man. He just couldn't do anything. It's that's the thing too. It's obviously. I feel like in the heavyweight division, the height thing makes less of a difference than it does when you're in the other divisions. Because when you're in a lower weight class, I feel like height really gives people issues. Like, without getting in too much into it, but look at Whitaker Adesanya. Like, the reach was a huge issue last night. Like, it makes people do things they don't normally do. And that's why I really feel like Hooker, if he can kind of avoid getting finished, if he takes a loss, a decision or something, I don't think it's not going to impact him as getting finished. But I really feel like he's going to do some damage in the division because he's got so much height. He really does. He's got such a reach advantage. And I mean, Al is a good fighter, man. He's a fucking really good fighter, and he got made to look like he was just not on his game at all last night.
I'll say this, and not to always have to bring Connor into this, and if it gets tiring for people listening, but they were saying in the interviews beforehand to like mainly Al, because Al, there was also that time where Al was trying to get in, with a fight with
there's
Conor.
no way that fight happens now.
But I mean, what I'm saying is they were kind of, I guess, hinting at the idea of the winner of that fight, how impressive it could have been, could have been a matchup for Conor. And of course, I feel like if that were to happen, it would have to be like that fight would have to end in like a knockout or a finish or something like that. But I mean, there's a possibility.
Like if Al fought Conor, it would have ended similar to how last night went, maybe with a finish though.
Right. So, I mean, I'm not even saying Al, I'm saying Hooker actually right now, because I feel like him being the winner,
I'd love to see, Hooker versus McGregor would be great when you're playing UFC 3 on your Xbox. That'd be a great fight to do, but I just don't see the fight happening.
I mean, of course, that's another big one. It's almost relating to Dustin, where it's like, that could happen eventually, but maybe you're shooting.
Listen, man, at the end of the day, Dana loves money. Dana White loves money. And whatever fight is going to bring in the most money, that's the fight that it's going to be. So, I mean...
it needs to be a bigger name. I was just kind of like shooting names like that, but Hooker... I
definitely see Hooker Cowboy. I really feel like that's the fight that they're going to make next. And I feel like it's going to be Gaethje McGregor, and hopefully it's going to be Ferguson Habib. And I feel like Poirier is kind of the only guy that gets left out. But, he's got the losses.
Wait, who did you say? Did you say who Gaethje was going to be fighting?
I think it's going to be Gaethje McGregor, and I think it's going to be Habib Ferguson.
Gotcha.
And then maybe we'll get... Ferguson versus GSP. Maybe we'll get Habib GSP. Maybe we'll get Habib McGregor at that point when there's not a belt on the line. Who knows? But I mean, I don't know.
Wow.
There's like the next 6 fights in that division. I'm gonna be happy with every one of them.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Well, damn, we really hit it on that one. We really covered, I think, a lot of ground right there in the lightweight division.
That might be a good spot to wrap it up just for today.
Yeah, I think we really, we were able to, of course, catch up on the events we weren't able to talk about, in the past weeks or so. And
I mean, like, we have opinions. We understand everybody does. We'd love to hear yours. So make sure you check us out on Twitter, on social media. Ben, if you want to give out the handles.
Absolutely. At Draw and Brawl on Twitter. So that's Draw N with the letter N and then BRAWL. And,
we'd love to hear your feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say about
We're always interested too. Questions, topics, podcast topics, anything that you want to send to us, we'll be interested to take a look at.
Yeah, we're really gonna, go far with this show. Right now it's been a lot of work in progress here and figuring things out, but that's how everything is. It takes time. Sure. So, eventually we're gonna be really putting out a good output. Our goal is to really be posting out on weekly on Mondays, but we're just gonna keep pushing it and get to the point where you fans can get in questions, or we'll have you in on a call where you can ask questions then, and then we're gonna also eventually have guest spots where we're gonna have fellow artists because
big things.
Yeah. Well, this is the Draw and Pod podcast, and we've talked about it before, but I don't know how much to the extent. But we're interested in bringing other artists in. That are fans of MMA. We'll probably even have podcasts that are just solely on art. So
we're definitely going to have art podcasts. I mean, it's called Brawl and Draw and Brawl. We're talking about art. We're talking about drawing. We're two artists and we love stuff. So we're going to have art guests on here. We're really just going to do whatever we want.
We're also, there's so many correlations with art and MMA where it's just not even about
it's expression, baby. They're artists with their feet. They're painting the canvas with blood.
Exactly. Like, we feel like with combat sports and art, there's such a relation. They all fall in the same subject, art, It's
Sure.
a craft that, we're taking it, dedication and exhaustion to do.
What I do want to do, I want to introduce a new segment real quick here.
Oh, snap.
And it's a really simple segment. It's just going to be a thing. It's the what fight are you most excited about? The current. We're not going to talk about fights that aren't booked. We're going to have at the week, at the end of our podcast, we're going to talk about a fight. Not even talk about as far as in depth. We're just going to say the fight that we're most excited about that's booked.
Okay.
So I'll go first. For me, the fight that I'm most excited about right now, that I'm literally salivating to see, you can probably guess what it is, but it's the Diaz Masvidal fight.
Yeah, that's probably my number one too.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We'd love to hear what your fight is as a fan, what your fight you're most looking forward to. Like I said, booked fight. We're not going to do these whole, like, I'm looking forward to Bruce Lee versus Muhammad Ali. Like, we can't have those fights. But something that's booked, that's actually real life, it's going to happen. We want to know what yours are too. But that's as good of a place to wrap it up as any.
That whole UFC 244 card is what I'm looking forward to.
Come on, man. You're already breaking the rules. First segment, you already broke the rules. We can't do that. Man, that's messed up. But we listen. We really appreciate you guys checking us out.
Absolutely.
We'd love to hear feedback. We'd love to see questions, even if your opinions are different than ours. It's kind of the whole thing. We have different opinions about stuff too, but it's we try to hold ourselves to the same level that we want people to hold fighters to. I mean, there's really no fighters. Well, I'm not going to say there's no fighters that we don't like, but we're going to be respectful of everybody because we realize that to be a fighter, the stuff that you go through, the things, just camps, everything else, it's so much. These guys need support. They're out there giving their blood, sweat, and tears, sometimes even their lives. The boxer that passed away a couple of weeks ago, you never know when it's going to be your last fight. And, it's one day these guys aren't going to be here anymore. One day Poirier's going to be gone, McGregor's going to be gone, Habib's going to be gone, it's going to be somebody else. And, just embrace it. Enjoy it while it's still here because it's not going to be around forever.
Yep. And we're going to be recording tomorrow again for UFC 243s.
We're doing
the
podcasts,
aftermath
baby.
of that.
That's what we do.
Yeah,
we'll check them out and listen to them.
Yep. So we'll hopefully getting this one posted up today and get the next one on the road tomorrow.
Whenever it's up, it's up.
Yep, exactly. But hope you all enjoy.
Appreciate it. So thanks for listening, guys. I'm Dave Fowler. This is Mysterio Ben Morris. And we will catch you next time on Draw and Brawl.
Draw and brawl on, guys.